What's up everybody, it's Victon here with another League Starter build guide for 3.13 Ritual League. This time we're going to be going over the long-awaited Life Elementalist Carrion Golem build. And before we even get going with this guide, I cannot stress this enough. Yes, there were pretty big changes to both the ways that we play a Carrion Golem builds with the Life Elementalist and the Low Life Necromancer Aura Stacker, but do not fear my friends. I am very confident that this is going to be still a top tier meta skill build, and it's going to be super strong even with the nerf, so don't worry guys. Now, this will be a blitz guide, so I'm going to move a little bit faster than normal here just to get through it, because we got a lot of build guides coming out for you guys for League Starters. But don't worry, I still have everything in here that you guys need to get going with this build. Throughout the guide, we're going to be going over the passive skill tree and path of building, the skill gems that we're going to be using, the gear that we're going to be going for, and I'm going to walk you guys through the leveling guide that I've made, and then we're going to go over the custom loot filter that I actually have for you guys on this build that specifically helps you level up with all the colors that you're looking for. And lastly, I'm going to show you guys all the super helpful trade website links that I have written down for you guys, so you guys can easily find all of these items I mentioned in the video with a super easy one-click button that you're going to find everything in the notes section of this path of building. Basically, what we're looking at as an overall general League Starter build for this Carrion Golem. So we're going to start off by having about 4.2 million Shaper DPS between our 6 Carrion Golems, which is more than enough to take you all the way to and past red tier maps in the end game. We have capped elemental resistances and chaos resistance. The new Primal Aegis shield from Elementalist, which is going to give you a massive 2.6 thousand life shield every 5 seconds, and all that for maybe like 20 chaos spent total. This budget build is going to be extremely cheap since it is a League Starter. From there, you're going to want to, of course, later transition into the in-game build, which is going to get about 7 million Shaper DPS per Golem, and we're going to have 4 Carrion Golems at that point. And we're also going to have about 80% physical damage reduction, which is very solid for defenses, along with around 1100 life regen, which is a ton. So yeah, lots to look forward to with this build. Even after the nerfs, we're doing just fine. As always, before we get into the guide, if you end up enjoying this guide, do consider subscribing, hitting that like button for more content just like this. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, I have a link to my Patreon below in the description, where you can subscribe and get some juicy benefits like access to my sub-only Discord, where we have an awesome community of folks ready and willing to help you guys with any type of build questions you have, and I personally am in there all the time doing build reviews for people. That, or come to my Twitch channel, which is also linked below. Just come hang out or come to ask as many questions as you want. I'm totally fine with that. I am always happy to help. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the path of building. So first thing we're going to do here is go over the actual skill tree itself, and then we're going to go over the ascendancy up here. I will mention a couple of the nerfs just in the beginning. We won't look at the patch notes or anything like that, but I'm going to give you the basics for essentially how we were nerfed. So the biggest one is just Carrion Golems in general got a 20% nerf. So that's just 20% less damage flat, which definitely sucks, but it's okay because we already had so much damage. It's really not too bad. Now, one of the other bigger nerfs that people might not realize is in Elementalist, we also lost, see if you can see right here, it says 25% increased damage per summon golem. We actually had another one of those up here. We had 20% increased damage per summon golem up in Elementalist that we lost. So with 6 golems, we're going to have that many golems. So that's 120% golem damage. That is quite a bit. I've done the math, and it's about 19% less damage. So again, another big nerf. So overall, that's like 40% damage nerf. So pretty significant. To give you guys an example, my end game fully min-maxed Life Elementalist version that I had last league was doing about just shy of 10 million Shaper DPS per golem. Now it's doing about, I think it was like 6.9 to just over 7 million, one of those two, per golem. So it's still a ton of damage, to be honest, and that's more than you ever need to do any of these in-game bosses, but it is a big dip. So I think that's why kind of people are freaking out that it is a big nerf. But again, I want to stress it's totally fine. We're still going to have more than enough damage, and on top of that, we did get a buff here with the Bastion of Elements, like I mentioned earlier. Triggers level 20 Primal Aegis when allocated. That's basically just a 200 or a 2,600 shield that you're going to get every 5 seconds. So super strong. So basically a beefy version of bone armor from Necromancer. So very good for this one. We also got some nerfs to cluster jewels. We got the Rotten Claws nerf. which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it used to be 20%, it is now 12%. This actually doesn't affect our build at all, so no worries there. We did get a renewal nerf. It used to be 10% double damage, which is essentially just 10% more damage, because they're always on full life. And Path of Building is actually wrong here. It's not 6%, it is actually 5%. But so it was a half cut right there, and it is not good. So what I actually would recommend you guys do on these large cluster jewels, this is again the League starter, so this is a very cheap option for a cluster jewel here, but now that renewal is nerfed, it's actually better to get a primordial bond. So something like a Rotten Claws, primordial bond, and maybe like a Vicious Bite or Feasting Fiends would be better than renewal claws. Or, I'm sorry, better than renewal. So a little bit of a change there, but overall not too much of a damage decrease. It's not really that big of a deal. We'll talk about that when we go over the clusters in general. But like I said, this is a blitz guide, so I'm not going to go over every single note here. I'm really only going to talk about the big stuff, and then we're going to move on, because I want to get you guys this information as quick as possible so you guys can make the decision if you want to actually play this build. The leveling tree, I do want to show you guys down here. I have a guide for essentially how you want to take your points from level 1 all the way up to your final build, and that also shows you how you level your points up in your ascendancy as well. So definitely give that a look as you're leveling up. You can kind of follow it, and you should be good to go. So some of the major things here to note is we don't have any of the primordial jewels except one. We just have this primordial might, which is expensive. This should be your second purchase of the league. I guess maybe not second, it should be your third, because you're going to get 2 clay shapers, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I did want to point that out because this is the only primordial gem that you're going to get, and the reason being is it makes your minions aggressive, which is very, very important. They're going to do a lot more damage if they're aggressive, and your clear speed is going to go up. If you don't have this, it's honestly fine. It doesn't really affect the damage, it just affects their AI and how they move around the map. So that's the only primordial jewel. We're not doing like the Anima Stone plus the Harmony plus the Eminence plus the Might. That's multiple exalts right there. We're not doing that. We're just sticking with the one for this League starter version. Other than that, it's really straightforward here. There's obviously this node, we're getting the Golem Commander for the +1 to maximum summon golems. You'll get this right around the time that you get your first ascendancy points, which we might as well just cover right now. The first one you're going to pick up is Liege of the Primordial, and that's going to give you +1 to summon golems. So right off the bat, when you hit level 34, we're going to be able to use 1 + 1 + 1. So we're going to be able to use 3 Carrion golems right off the bat. And I mean, that's pretty solid. That's a lot of damage. So even with the nerfs, you're going to be sitting pretty good when you get those plus golems. And then around level, what is it, 42 when we get our clay shapers, 41, you're probably only going to have 1 at first. That's another golem. So it's just a ton and ton of damage. Very, very solid to level up with. So that's your first point. That's your second point with Elemancer. That also is going to make you immune to elemental damage. I'm sorry, not immune to elemental damage, but it's going to make you immune to elemental ailments. So that's a very big piece as well. Your third is going to be Bastion of the Elements. So that's your Merciless Lab, and that is just going to be a whole lot of defenses. Very, very solid. And your last point, there's actually really not much we can do here because none of these points really have any effect on golems. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to get the 10% increased effect of lightning ailments and then 10% effect of cold ailments, and that's going to pair pretty nicely with our skitterbots because that's going to boost their shock and their chill. So not too bad, but not the best, but that's what we're going to do there. Other than that, we are getting the +1 Spectre over here. Let's see what else. We are getting stun immunity and just a few jewels here and there. They're very basic jewels, just life and minion steal additional damage if you use a minion skill recently. Very, very basic. If you wanted to upgrade from this, you would get like physical damage to attacks for minions. And then for the cluster jewels, like I talked about, we are going to have to, we do need 2 Rotten Claws, just so you guys know. So 2 Rotten Claws and all of the skill gems that we'll talk about in a little bit is going to get you 96% Impale. Before we were at 100%, so we essentially lost 4%. Really not a big deal. And one thing that you can do to change that, which is more of an in-game thing, is your Dread Banner default quality. You can actually get a Divergent one, and that's going to give you 5% chance to Impale. So it raises your damage just a little bit, but it makes you have 100% Impale chance. So one thing to keep an eye out and look for that Divergent Dread Banner. Not sure the price is on it. It's not necessary, but it will get you that 100% Impale. So Later, I'll show you these actual cluster jewels. I'm making it super easy for you guys, so you can just click in the notes and you can go straight to this cluster jewel on the Path of Trade website, the Path of Exile official trade website. And we're doing that because I want to make it super easy for you guys to roll these and it'd be very cheap. We're only going with one single Rotten Claw jewel, one single Rotten Claw notable. Nothing else is on here. Like it doesn't have Vicious Bite, it doesn't have Primordial Bond, just because it's very cheap to just get a Rotten Claw. You're just going to use Alteration spamming and you're going to get one eventually. For our medium clusters, we are going to be doing Renewal and Feasting Fiends. And the reason we're doing Feasting Fiends here, we used to get Dread March, I think is what it's called, for a lot of defense, but now we kind of do need a little bit extra damage, so we're going to go ahead and pick these up. Plus it gives a little bit of life for your minions, and it gives some nice life leads, so overall not too bad. And we're going to get 4 of these, so we're going to get 2 with the Rotten Claws, the large ones, and we're going to get 4 of these minions with 4 of these medium cluster jewels with Feasting Fiends and Renewal. And that's really it for the skill tree, other than eventually you do want to anoint Ravenous Horde. It's not too bad. The Opalescent is not expensive, but it's more than just a few chaos. That'll be probably something you do around yellow tier maps, red tier maps. You're going to anoint Ravenous Horde. It's just a ton of extra damage. So yeah, so that's the passive skill tree. Let's go ahead and move on to your skills. Again, I'm not going to go over every single one super in detail here, but this is your skill links for your summon Carrion Golems. As you can tell, I didn't do quality on any of these, so it's like day 1, day 2 type stuff. No quality on anything, and this is our damage. So pretty solid damage for basically nothing. We are going to have Convocation, Flame Dash, Desecrate. We're going to have a vulnerability in our Profane Proxy. An interesting thing here, it is more damage to go with a Flesh Offering instead of a Skitterbots, but not too much. You can see 716 here. I think it brings it up to like 740, so really not that big. And I personally just like having your Skitterbots have your vulnerability curse attached to them. It's a little bit easier, and I think it's a little bit more efficient than having your Flesh and Stone, because your Flesh and Stone buff, you're going to want it in Blood Stance to get damage. And if you're in Blood Stance, the AoE is not that big, so basically it's only good for bosses, whereas if we're going with Skitterbots and then you have that vulnerability in it, it's really good for just AoE clearing and a little bit good for bosses, so it's kind of jack of all trades. So I'm going to go with Skitterbots instead of the Flesh and Stone, but you guys can do whatever you want. Vulnerability, like I said, Flesh Offering, super good for just attack damage. We are going to be using a Cast When Damage Taken and Immortal Call setup, so that's pretty nice for our defenses. Looks like we only have 2 here. I think we messed this one up. This should be, oh good lord, what is it called? Steel Skin. There we go. Sorry about that. So the reason we're going Steel Skin here is, so as you can tell, it gives you a 2200 shield, so it's super crazy. So we're going to get a 2200 shield from Steel Skin, okay, and we're also going to get a 2600 shield from Primal Aegis. So that's almost 5,000 effective life shields every 5 seconds, so very, very good. And we do have kind of a low life pool in this build. It not as big of a deal because we have a pretty decent amount of physical damage reduction. We have very good elemental and chaos resistances. We have those shields, so you are pretty tanky. You have several layers of defenses here. So Spectres, for your Spectres, you are going to be wanting to get 2, eventually once you get to the maps, you're going to want to get 2 Carnage Chieftains and 1 Host Chieftain. Both of those are going to be from Ashen Fields in Act 7. So go get those up for your Spectres, and you absolutely need Blood Magic. Make sure you have Blood Magic linked to your Race Spectre, or they're not going to cast their Frenzy charges and their power charges. Make sure you do that. Eventually you will have Animate Guardian, but for now, you're probably not going to do that until you get to upper, maybe red tier maps, and at that point you would switch out Meat Shield, and you would put that in. But for now we're going to keep Meat Shield, just so your dudes just don't die. Zombie, this is where you're going to get your Feeding Frenzy and your main buff, and we do have a minion life here to make them a little bit more tanky. And again, this is because we're only doing Carrion Golems right now with our Tool Clay Shapers. We're going to have 6 Carrion Golems. So we don't have our Chaos Golem and we don't have our Stone Golem. We're going to put those in when you get your Anima Stone and all of your Primordial Jewels. At that point, you will put in your Summon Chaos and your Summon Stone, and that's when you really turn into a super tank. But for now, since this is the League starter, we're just going to use Raised Zombie for the Maim and Feeding Frenzy buff. Moving on to Dread Banner. Dread Banner is how we're getting all of our Impale chance, a big part of it. And we're going to use Pride for our damage. Already talked about Skitterbots, and these are just from the Clay Shaper, so pay attention to those. So that's all of the skills. So let's go ahead and move on to the items. So your number 1 and number 2 purchase as a League starter character is going to be this right here. It is Clay Shapers. They're usually about 6 to 12 chaos. They might even be cheaper now because people don't like Carrion Golems for some reason right now. So they might be cheaper, so that might actually be pretty good for us. Same thing with the Primordial Might and all the Primordial Gems. I'm hoping that they're actually cheaper for you guys now because people are not wanting to play it and they don't understand that it's still a very good build. So maybe they're going to be cheaper for you guys, but your number 1 purchase, number 2 purchase is Clay Shapers. 2 of those. It's so much more damage. And you're going to note here, down there is Carrion Golem nerf. You see that? It says minions deal 20% less damage. That's actually not on the Clay Shaper. I just manually input that, and I am simulating the 20% nerf to Carrion Golems because that's actually not figured into Path of Building right now. They don't have the gems accurate right now, so I did that myself to simulate. So this is very accurate DPS with that right there. So everything else is just super cheap. Life and resists. The only thing probably to note here is this helmet. I did go with one that has like a plus socket to gems for specters, and also some life, and that's so your dudes just don't die. You can easily roll this on an Elder helmet and just use bound fossils. It'll probably take anywhere from 5 to 10 bound fossils. Super easy to roll. It's not needed, but it's going to give you a lot of survivability to the minions in your helmet, which is the your specters, so they don't die. So everything else super cheap. One thing that I'll give you guys later in the links to the trade website is the trade, I guess the link to how to purchase a super cheap 6 link. We'll talk about it later, but you can get a super cheap 6 link very on in the league that's just a step up from a Tabula Rasa. Later on, Wall of Brambles might be pretty cheap as well, since we do have Heist, and this drops quite a bit in Heist, so not too bad. Maybe they're going to be like 50-60 chaos for Wall of Brambles. Like this chess piece probably cost me like 15 chaos, so super cheap. And this is your in-game one if you just wanted to take a look at it. That's your big boy chess piece. So moving on, everything else is super simple. Life, resistances, until we get down to Profane Proxy. These guys are about 10 chaos, maybe a little bit less. Some good resistances. And it's going to get that vulnerability. We're going to make sure you put this in your left ring slot so your chilling turns into vulnerability. We want to keep that shocking, so don't put it in your right ring slot. Darkness Enthroned, it's like a 1 chaos item. It just buffs the jewels inside of it very much, and we're going to go with, like I mentioned earlier, life and minions deal increased damage if you use a minion skill recently. Now, one thing I did want to mention to you guys, definitely do not overlook your flasks. I think a lot of people overlook flasks, especially newer players, and I really want to make a point here. That is so much defenses come from your flasks. Just hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe not 5 since that's maybe your life flask, but just hitting 1, 2, 3, 4 and keeping those up 24/7 gives you so much defenses. Like, watch this. Let's just do it. So we're down to physical damage reduction 17%. So that's not the best. It's okay, I guess, but it's not the best now. But we can keep up our flasks 100% of the time. And look at that. You go up to 65%. And that also gave us our max chaos res as well. And it's going to give us some... Where's the evasion? So it gave us some evasion rating as well, 4,000 evasion rating. So very strong for defenses. Make sure you guys have those up 24/7. And I think that's pretty much it here for the items. So yeah, so let's go over, I guess I can show you real quick on the configuration, just so you guys see. And for real quick, so on the Pride Aura effect, I actually never use it on maximum. I always do initial, but I think it's okay to do it on maximum effect. Basically what Pride does is the longer an enemy stays in Pride's aura of effect, the more damage they take. So that's what maximum effect means. It means they have stayed in their aura for 4 seconds. For your in-game builds, you kill things so fast that you're never going to get to maximum effect. So for my in-game builds, I actually click initial effect, and for my league starters, I think it is okay to click maximum effect. Other than that, pretty much everything in here is very basic. It is very accurate to the DPS. I'm not doing any extra clicking on stuff to boost the DPS numbers from you guys. This is a very accurate boss damage DPS. So moving on to our notes. Again, I'm not going to show you everything here and walk you detailed through detailed. If you guys want me to do a full walkthrough of the entire build and leveling process, do let me know in the comments, and I will do that if I get a lot of requests for it. But for now, I'm just going to show you guys that this is here, and you guys can kind of run with it if you want. Basically what it's doing is it's telling you exactly how to level the build, what skills that you're going to need to purchase as you go out through the entire campaign. And once we get down here, we got some extra little bits for you guys that I'll show you. These are all links to what I'll pull up right here, so I can show you guys. If I do an extended leveling guide, I will go through this page right here, which is the same thing that's in that note section, but it's a little bit nicer and neater, and it helps you out with kind of what to purchase, what you get versus your quest reward. So it's a little bit neater than what you can put into a path of building. But one thing to note is I have a custom loot filter for leveling this character. Super useful. I use it myself when I level any summoner build. And the reason we're using a loot filter specifically for summoners is it has the exact colors that you want on all your gear to make it super easy for you guys. If a piece drops that has the right colors for your build, that's a 4-link, it'll tell you. It'll have a big, for example, a blue beam that shoots up into the sky. Basically pick that item up, and those are the colors you want for your build. So it just makes leveling up pretty much a breeze, so you don't have to use your brain while you're looking for gear. Very good. And to do this, I would follow the build. So anytime you hit follow, any changes that I make to the build, like you can see I actually updated it I think last night, it'll automatically get updated to your filter. If you just copy it, you have to do it manually. So I wouldn't really suggest copying it. I would suggest following the build. Moving on. So this is what I want to show you guys. I'm going to have these links in, so you can see it kind of like down here. This is what it'll look like in the path of building notes section. Just click that link, the path of building, copy it and paste it into your search bar, and this is what it's going to pop up. Just making it easy for you guys to search for gear. Clay shapers, like I said, that's your number 1 and number 2 purchase, so you can get those extra golems. Very good. You're going to use this all the way up until probably like red maps, and at that point you're going to replace them with 2 cold iron point daggers, but those are a little bit expensive, probably 60-70 chaos, so you're going to use these for a long time, and they're very good. Moving on, you're definitely going to want a tabula rasa or some type of 6-link, so definitely pick this up. I do think that you guys can farm these in low-level rituals, so maybe like the coast, because it's a high probability of actually finding a tabula rasa in the coast. So that might be a thing, maybe not. I'm going to try to do it, so I'm going to try and self-farm myself a tabula through rituals in the coast, and I guess we'll report back to you guys and let you know. But if you don't, they're usually about 25 to 30 chaos in the first few days, and they drop down to about 18 chaos after that. Definitely pick this up as your 3rd purchase of the league. 2 clay shapers and then a tabula rasa, and then next, like I mentioned, it's very important to go ahead and pick up a primordial might. These are a bit expensive, so you're gonna have to save up. They're usually, it's crazy. It goes from like 75 chaos all the way up to like 150 chaos a few days in, but at the same time, it never used to be like that until last league. They're usually a lot cheaper, so I'm hoping that they're a lot cheaper this league because not many people are going to be playing golems. Maybe, I might be wrong, and we might still have a gazillion people playing golems, so we'll have to see. Either way, this needs to be your 3rd purchase. It's just because of that summon golems are aggressive. Very important. After that, we are going to start picking up the rest of your primordial jewels, and you can kind of tell here, that's the budget version. It's just 2 clay shapers and a tabula rasa. That's literally it. And then if you throw in this, that rounds out your full budget build. Everything after here is kind of what I'm just showing you guys, so you can kind of plan on your medium budget build. From there, we're definitely going to get the primordial imminence and the primordial harmony, and then you have to purchase another primordial might, and you're going to vendor all of those. So you vendor a primordial might, a primordial imminence, and a primordial harmony, all 3 together, and it pops out an anima stone. Never buy an anima stone yourself. People upcharge those, and you're going to pay way more than you should if you just buy these 3 together and vendor them. So that is how you do that. Now, I have the Craft of Exile on here. I was going to give you guys a quick tip, but I'll probably do that in the full guide if I do one for you guys. Basically, the whole point of this is that I made this search for you guys very specific so that it's going to be very easy to roll these medium cluster jewels for renewal and feasting fiends. There's complicated stuff behind it, but just know that use this search to purchase your medium cluster jewels, and you're going to craft on these with alterations, and you're going to get the Feasting Fiends of Renewal. Not too bad. It's going to be pretty quick to get those, I think. Same thing with your large cluster jewel. Don't worry about that price. That's standard prices. It's going to be much cheaper than that. But this search is going to be exactly what you want to get a large cluster jewel, which you're then going to craft on yourself. And you're going to go for Rotten Claws. If you can get something else on it, that's fantastic. But you need at least Rotten Claws, and you need 2 of them in order to hit that 96% impale chance. Moving on here to the Darkness Throne. It's a 1 chaos item, super cheap. Go ahead and pick that up when you can and put in jewels like this with just that life and minions deal increased damage if you use a minion skill recently. And ideally you eventually want to get one also that has maybe even some dex, but definitely physical damage to minions. Very good. Moving on to the very last thing, like I said earlier, I was going to show you guys how to get cheap 6 links. So you can use that search to search this, and you're going to pull up a lot of corrupted items. Sometimes they're not going to be corrupted, but basically corrupted items usually sell for so much less because people don't want to purchase corrupted items because it's not that easy to change the colors on corrupted items. But what we can do to get around that is we just make sure that we put in the exact colors that we want in our build. And then I also put in life, a little bit of life, and a little bit of elemental resistances. You can change that if you want. Search, and it'll show you very cheap 6 links with the exact colors you need for the build, so it's totally fine. I usually do this, and you can pick up some pretty decent ones. Like, look at this one, 105 life. You can get some pretty decent ones, so not too bad. And that is it for all of the links that I have for you guys. Let's go ahead and go back to the path of building. And again, all of that is in your notes section up here. So just click that notes and you can see the full leveling guide, and you can have access to all these links down here for you guys on pulling up those items in the trade website. So overall, guys, I think this is going to be a very good league starter. You start off with more than 4 million damage, which is going to get you all the way to red maps and beyond. You start off with a decent amount of defenses, and I mean, that's all you can ask for. And on top of that, you have Carrion Golems, right? Which the playstyle of Carrion Golems is one of the biggest things that makes them attractive and very strong. You can literally just run in circles while your dudes go crazy and destroy everything. That makes it very easy for newer players, especially like learning fights of bosses. So you can really focus on not dying and dodging mechanics and kind of just learning the fight. So that's one of the best reasons I think summoners are so strong. And I think a lot of people like it for that as well. And you can't nerf that. You can nerf the damage, but you can't nerf the playstyle, and the playstyle, in my opinion, is what is OP. But luckily, we didn't get too much of nerfs to make this unplayable. I think we're going to be just fine. I think the nerfs were warranted. I think they were okay, and we'll be just fine. I think this is going to be a meta skill, so hop on the bandwagon before everybody realizes the build's not dead, so you can get some cheap items. That's my thoughts on it, guys. Let me know in the comment section if you guys do plan on playing Carrion Golems, and if not, what are you guys going to be playing for your League Star? I'm very curious to hear. I was very torn between this and Dominating Blow Guardian. I've done this like 6 million times, so I am going to do a Dominating Blow Guardian as my League Starter, but I think this is fantastic. Like, if I wasn't doing that, I would be doing this for sure. But yeah, that's all I got, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one, which is actually going to be the exact same thing, but we're going to do, it's a whole different build basically, but it's going to be Carrion Golems as a Necromancer, and it's going to be low life for the medium budget. So definitely check that out if y'all are interested, and I will see y'all in the next one. Thanks, guys.